Hello guys and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Sir Trades and today we will be looking at the best teams to stack for your Cap 240 for the upcoming MLS season. For those who don't know, Cap 240 is a mode on Sorare where you do not need to play against each other Sorare users, but Sorare itself. The main aim for Cap 240 is to score above the threshold of 280 points. Then you will be rewarded with the $5 bonus. Of course, in the mode Cap 240, you have the ability to also earn rewards such as limited and also rares if you do well. As you can see right now, I have a pretty big MLS gallery. I like the MLS as it plays in the summer when the Europe leagues are off on their off season. This means that the competition is less as a lot of players only have Europe heavy galleries. This and having a MLS heavy gallery means that during the summer season you'll be able to do well. My first stack of my choice is the Seattle stack. So currently they have a floor price of 0.0116 Ethereum, and every threshold you gain 0.0025 Ethereum. This means with only 5 thresholds, you'll be able to make up for the amount you spend while buying on the floor price. This said, you'll also be able to buy at cheaper prices since you'll be able to negotiate below the current floor prices for most of these players. As you can see here, this team has consistently hit threshold and has come close multiple times. However, we have to keep in mind that sometimes, like here in Game Week 383 where they were 23 points off threshold, Jordan Morris didn't play as he was injured. Here's also the same with 43 points off with Tolo not playing, 30 points off with Tolo not playing, etc. As you can see, this is a pretty strong threshold stack in my opinion for the Cap 240 mode. Furthermore, the Seattle Sounders have have a lot of good players, meaning that you can swap and choose those who you think are the best for your gallery. Right now, we still have 7 remaining points in our Cap 240, and this means that even if they start to perform well, we will still have some leniency in when to change players. So now I'll show you some other players from Seattle which you may choose instead of these players if you wish to. For starters, the keepers. Well, from what I could read, although Stephen Fry is 37, it looks to me that he will be playing next season. However, if he isn't, well, the likes of Stephen Cleveland is also an option. So for now, I'm pretty sure Stephen Fry, although he is 37, is a pretty relatively safe and cheap option as your keeper next year. The Seattle Sounders have an amazing defense as well, from the likes of Jackson Reagan, Tolo, Roldan, and Gomez. My personal favorites are Tolo and Gomez as they are both consistent scorers. However, Alex Roldan has those decisive capabilities and is also a very good shout. So is Jackson Reagan, as he is a bit on the younger side compared to the likes of Gomez. In the midfield, we have, of course, Joao Paulo. He is an amazing player, as we know, and that's a very cheap price for him. That's almost $5 if you think about it. However, he is also 32, and his L15 is a bit high to put into Cap 240. The likes of Christian Roldan is also a good shout. However, he is not my favorite for a threshold team as he is very decisive dependent, and when he does not score decisives, his scores are a bit lackluster, as I will show you here. And this I don't think is a great thing for a threshold player, as this could ruin your chances of your threshold here. However, when he gets those decisives, he does hit these peak points, which is nice to see. And then there's also Rusnak, who's also a great player, a bit of a higher L15 as well. And then Lodero, who has been a bit underwhelming, and considering that he is 34, there is also definitely a risk there. However, he is only 0.0004 Ethereum, almost like the base price. Reed Baker Whiting is another great youngster option. However, it looks like he has a hamstring injury. but since the season's over, he should be fine for the next season. Same with Josh Intencio and Leo Chu. For your strikers, we have Jordan Morris. He is a very solid player, and I would expect him to start next year. However, he did have some troubles with injury this season and was not as good as you would have hoped, as you can see in these graphs, because like he wasn't here there, and some of these points like they would have scored way higher if they did have Jordan Morris back. Raul Diaz, I don't really like him because he's old and he doesn't do as much and doesn't start as much as he used to do. So if you are going for a Seattle Sounders stack, which honestly I think is one of the best options you can go, not even like MLS wise, but like in the whole game, I think it would look something like this with Stephen Fry, Nohutolo, Lodero, Morris, and Gomez or Roldan. So yeah, so this is the first stack, and we'll be moving on to the second MLS stack. Before we start with our second stack, which as you can see is going to be Vancouver Whitecaps, I'd just like to mention this is not financial advice, and when you're trying to buy these players, you should always do your own research and just not go based on what I'm saying in this video. So our second team is the Vancouver Whitecaps. They are a bit more pricey compared to the Seattle Sounders. However, as you can see, they're much younger players. Like the oldest player is Laria, who is 27, and that's pretty young MLS wise in my opinion. So with the price of 0.0142 Ethereum, that comes to around 6 Ethereum, and you make your money back. So again, dead cheap, and if you put them into Cap 240, you should be making a profit. Right now, yes, their scores aren't as great as the Seattle Sounders, but you gotta take into mind that like most of these scores, like people have been playing and some people weren't. So here in Game Week 376, I would expect you to get a threshold if Laria and Ahmed played, but that's here again 373. 367. So Laria, as you can see, was the one that wasn't playing. However, after he moved from Toronto to Vancouver, he has played way more games. Here he scored 95. So like when they play, like they consistently push those high 200 to 300 scores, which means I think next season with the full season, they should be able to hit you way more than 6 thresholds, as you see here. So for Vancouver wise, the keeper, I own Yohei Takaoka. Oh, I butchered that name. Yeah, he's a solid keeper, really cheap for 0.067 Ethereum, only 27, so I think he has some longevity there, and solid keeper all around. Defensive rise, Laria, he's moved from Toronto to Vancouver and has been playing pretty well. So I think he's a great option to have here. Consistently good scoring, and then has those peaks of 98. Ranko, he's also a decent player. As you can see, his L15 is like pretty decent compared to Laria, but again, solid, and I think is another option. Very cheap as well compared to Laria, as you can see. Ahmed, also amazing players, has hit some form, as you can see. His L15 is very low, and he's under 23, so that's always a plus. And then from here, like these two, Tristan Blackmon and Samuel, both not my favorite options, although they do both have like pretty low L15s, so could be a good backup option to buy if you consider stacking these people and having more expensive cap L15 players on the team as well. Midfielders, here's the big one, Ryan Gauld. He is an amazing player, and we both know that. We all know that. He's 27, but he's just too expensive in my opinion. That price for Cap 240, I don't think he should be paying. Plus, his L15, in my opinion, is just way too high. Again, this Kubas, I'm not really sure about him, but seems like a solid enough player. And when he plays, he can have those peak scores with a decisive and without a decisive. But sometimes his scores are just not good enough in my opinion to have that L15 of 52 when he's hitting 30s, 40s, 34s. So not my favorite option. Whereas Vite, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. He's 21. He's a bit of a youngster, but I think him or Berhalter could both be good options for the upcoming, as they're both young. But as you can see, Vancouver Whitecaps don't have a great midfielder except for Gold, and I don't really like him as a Cap 240 option, especially with his L15 being so high and his price being so high. Finally, for their forwards, there's Brian White. I love Brian White. All right, he has hit some rough patches, but as you can see, I own him as well because I'm a great believer in him. He's a solid player. Look at these scores. I love these scores. For Cap 240, I don't really for a forward in the Cap 240, if they hit decisive sometimes, I'm happy with this. This Hoylett guy also seems decent. He's starting to get a bit minutes. Gets decent AA, which is lovely to see in a forward. However, he's not minted, so maybe next year if he is minted, he might be someone you might want to pick up. But yeah, so just to wrap up for Vancouver Whitecaps, they're a decent team. Their midfield is a bit weak, so if they do pick someone up in their midfield, that could also be a shout. So yeah, they do not have any remaining L15 points, but like with a few mix and matches, that I think this team also could be a shout. For my best 5 from Vancouver Whitecaps, it's Takoka in goal, Laria, Vite, White, and Alamid as the extra option. So the next stack I have in mind is the Nashville stack. This is one of my favorite stacks. For the past few years, they've been very consistent and well scoring. This year, they've been not as dominant as you'd wish from Nashville, but still amazing. So who I've picked here is Willis, Zimmerman, Mukhtar, Lovett, and Bunbury. As I don't really like Bunbury, but like to fit into the Cap 240, he just works perfectly. We will be talking about the other options, which I like a bit more, but that is up to your choice. Their price compared to Seattle and Vancouver are a bit high, but still for 0.025 ETH per threshold, this will be you'd make this back in no time. As you can see, their scores are way better. Here, they've had a good run of form. This is without Joe Willis, by the way. So, like, yeah, you have to take into mind, like, these scores may seem a bit low, but it's because they've had 2 TNPs, with Willis going out injured and Bunbury not starting some games. So, Willis, again, talking about Willis here, he is 34, he is a bit old, but I'd expect him to stay because he is a solid keeper, even though Nashville haven't been as good as you'd expect. Zimmerman, amazing player, consistent. Same with Hani Mukhtar. Maybe he has some rumors about going to Europe, but I think he still stays in the MLS, although he's like really quality compared to other MLS players. I don't really like Bunbury, but like it works. And then Lovitz, he had some good form in recent games. But here, they might have hit threshold here. Again, very close to it. Close to it without Lovitz here. 2 negative decisive. As you can see, this is a solid stack. So, for the depth of Nashville, here we have the 2 keepers of Willis and Panico. Willis, I think, is guaranteed started next year, but if he does get injured, I think Elliott does come in. And unless they sign a new keeper, I would expect it to stay that way. Defense. I love Nashville's defense. So there's Zimmerman, who I like. Lucas McNo, who he's a solid player. Don't get me wrong, he has great AA. But he has been injured, but like next year, I think he'd be a solid option to have. I'm not sure how high his L15 would go up, but currently 56 is a bit high, but I think he'd be quality. Shaq Moore. I like Shaq Moore. I own a card, as you can see. I own a card of Zimmerman as well, just for clarity. His scores pretty consistent in the low 50s, high 40s, but he can hit these peaks. Plus, he only has a cap 215 of 53, which is a bit high, but that's because of scores like this, which he is capable of. And I think his L15 drops to something a bit closer to this, but a bit higher. I think he's an option there. Jack Mayer, he's also solid. Again, very cheap for 0.82. Yes, he got subbed, but that's because of Lucas, I think. So if Lucas does look like to be the starter, maybe he is someone to steer clear of. There's two center back partnerships of Zimmerman and Lucas working, and him being on the bench. But he is a solid player. He's a consistent. He doesn't hit those massive points, but he consistently rolls and ticks on those decent points. And then finally, Daniel Lovitz. He also 82 cents, so cheap. Honestly, these prices for MLS cards are crazy. I might have to pick one of this up. He is more of those hit or miss players, you know. He will pop off, or he'll just do nothing. Like this, like maybe he's not the best for Cap 240, but then again, if he hits a score like this or this, you're kind of guaranteed threshold because that's like a 40 plus in it compared to his L15. Midfield, I mean, they have a few midfield options, but if you're not getting Mukhtar, just don't get a Nashville stack. I own a Mukhtar. I got him at a pretty decent price. His prices has risen a bit, so if you're gonna buy him, I'd urge you to buy him soon. His form, he's just good, isn't he? He does blank a bit, but even then, like, he's just too good for the MLS in my opinion. Like, he's just him. He's just that guy. And then as forwards option, there's three options here. There's Bunbury. I do not like him, but he has such a low L15. Like, even if he starts, he gets more, right? So that's pretty decent. Jacob, he's a youngster, right? He's alright. He's just still a substitute, but he plays like decent minutes, 33 minutes. He gets a goal here and there. He ticks along, so he's not that bad, not the best. But if you're going for a Nashville stack, I think you should be going for Samuel Surridge, right? He came from Nottingham Forest. You know all the foreign players at the MLS do well, I swear. That's how it always is. He's hit those patches of good form. He's been on the bench a bit, but next year when he starts the season off fresh with Nashville, I think he's the one to be your main man up top. So to conclude, for Nashville, I'd have Joe Willis in goal, Zimmerman, Mukhtar, and then maybe change him with Shackmore and Surridge or something like that. But for now, Lovitz is a great player, and Bunbury, although I do not really like him. And last but certainly not least is Sporting Kansas City. So I think I really like Sporting Kansas City as a team, and I think they would be a great option to stack as your Cap 240, and I think is one of up there for one of the best in my opinion, price wise. So their price is 0.0075. That's three thresholds, and you make back their floor, which, if you think about it, is crazy how cheap that is. You get a whole year's utility with three. That's $15, by the way. But the one reason, in my opinion, their price is so cheap is because of Tim Melia, right? He's a great keeper, and he is 36, right? We've got to take that into mind. He is very old, and he has had a few injuries this season, with the likes of Kendall McIntosh coming in for a long period of time, especially during the Cup. However, he's a solid keeper, and I would expect him to play next season. Furthermore, this price will also drop more because they still have utility as they're still in the MLS playoffs. So when they get knocked out, I think I will be buying a few players from this team, especially like Ndenbe, Pulido, and Eric Tommy. So scores. You first see it and it's a bit underwhelming, like 258 to like 300. They hit, that's like a great score here. 317, 250. So like it's a bit underwhelming. Like, oh, do I really want to buy something like this? But you've got to think about it here, right? These scores, some of them, they're like Tim Melia was out for a while. Like from here to here, they have had a lot of injuries. That's two decisives here in a game week 393. So if you had people playing here, in my opinion, you're pretty much nailed on to have a get threshold with 260 plus scores. Here it's not good. Here again, if Melia plays, that's another 35 points. That's already at 274, and then Ndembe and Melia probably gets a few staves here as well, right? So with a few AA, that's another point. That's another threshold. two players out and you are 70, 60 points off, 30, 53 points off threshold. So that's pretty much another guaranteed threshold here. So as you can see, it looks underwhelming, but it's because Melia's been out for so long. And I think this price is just too cheap not to pick up. I am really considering buying some Sporting Kansas City players. So in goal. This is the part where it's risky. So what you might do is just buy a different MLS keeper and maybe stack them with the Sporting Kansas City boys. Or see if they transfer in a new keeper who may be the start of next season. So there's Tim Melia. He's a solid keeper. He's alright. He's also pretty decent. And Kendall McIntosh, who did well, but then for the cup games and then Pulskamp, I think is the second choice though in this team. So we'll see how this goes, how Tim Melia's situation goes for this year, the summer break, the winter break, and then that's I think where you should decide. Defense-wise, their defense is pretty weak. They only have like 3 good players. So Ndembe, he is out with an ACL, so I'm not sure when he'll be back. But if he's gonna be back in time for next season start, I think he's a great option. Fontas, solid scorer, a bit of a high L15, and is 34. But then again, if you're playing in the MLS, 34 is it's not the worst age, especially if like Houston have like Hector Herrera in the midfield still bossing it at like very old ages. You see, like he got a negative decisive and getting an error let to go, and that like if he has solid games, man, like his scores amazing in my opinion. Less than $1 is crazy. And then Daniel Rosero, also solid, less than $1, 0.88. He hits those like high 50s, high 50s, low 60 points, but like that's solid. Like that's for L15 of 46. Like these scores you'll take, and then with the collection bonus you'll get from buying all these Sporting Kansas City players and your normal XP. Tim Leibold, this guy is also decent when he's fit. He gets some decent scores. Looks like he's injured right now. Yeah, he has a groin injury, so hopefully it goes well. But seems like a decent player, has those peak capabilities. Not too sure of his scores, but yeah, he looks really injury prone or just like doesn't play that much. In the midfield, so their Sporting Kansas midfield is good, like it's very good. So my favorite is Eric Thommy. He is again foreigner. I swear all foreigners play well in the MLS. So he moved from Köln, I'm pretty sure, in Germany. And where is it? Yeah. So okay, it doesn't show here, but he moved from Köln, I'm pretty sure. That's Stuttgart, sorry, my bad. Okay, yeah. But he's been bossing it in the MLS, hasn't he? Like, he's just too cheap for this price. Look at these scores. Yes, he gets rotated with Kinda, which is a bit annoying. He's been benched the 2 games. But, like, next year, I think he's the one that starts next year. He gets 38. This is, like, lovely scores. He gets a decisive hit. He hits those 86 points, so I'd say if he's nailed on, he should be your captain for your Sporting Kansas City stack. And then there's also Radoja. Sorry, Data's having a meltdown. Okay, so yeah, him. He just doesn't hit those peaks, but he's consistently just ticking away at those high 50s, which is enough in my opinion. Like, yes, I think his L15 is a bit too high for his scores, but then again, he gets a decisive in there with these scores. He gets a decent score, so like no problem with that. Jake Davis, he's a youngster now, right? 21 years of age, looks to be like nailed on. He can get those high points, but not like he hits those like low points as well. But like pretty consistent, so maybe with maybe like a way lower L15, closer to his L5, he could be another good option in the future. And then Remy Walter. He's a 28-year-old. He is decisive. He needs a decisive here and there. He gets benched sometimes, but again, alright player, not amazing, but if you're going for a midfielder, I'd go for Tommy. And then there's the boy Gadi Kinda. Right? He's the other one that plays against Tommy, right? So if Tommy starts, he gets benched. If he starts, Tommy gets benched. Like he's a good player. He scores very well, like when he starts, but you don't know when he'll start, and I don't know about him. Like, it's an if. Maybe he's a decent option if he gets like consistent starting time next season. But yep. And then strikers. They Sporting Kansas City have some solid forwards. So there's Pulido, great scorer, and the person I'd have for my Cap 240 if I did buy a Sporting Kansas City stack. Gets those decisives and like can score like alright. Not these won't like ruin your lineup scores if he doesn't score like with AA, which I like in my forwards because I don't want them to be too decisive action dependent. Russell, again, solid player, good player, but his contract runs out in December 2023, so, and he is 33, so I'm not sure if he'll resign and play. I mean, start next season. But if he does, another great option to have. He does like tick on. He like as a forward, 19 AA is pretty decent. And then the big boy, Saloy, right? He's 27. He's gonna be their main man next year, right? He's from Hungary. He's good for $7. That's really cheap, but these scores don't lie. Like, he is a good player. Like, right? He also does get a few A's, but like he's very decisive dependent, and he gets those decisives. So if you want, I think Daniel Saloy is also a very good option for your Sporting Kansas City stack next year. So for what I would line up your Sporting Kansas City stack if you do buy one, if I did buy one, would be Melia, and Ndembe if he's back, Tommy, Pulido, and Rosero, and either Captain Tommy or Pulido, depending on what you prefer. If you want those peaks or you want those like consistent scores, which would be Tommy. So yeah, um, I hope you enjoyed. So these were my four MLS stacks that you could use in the upcoming MLS season for your Cap 240 in order to reach threshold. These prices for MLS cards are way too cheap, so if I were you, I'd buy as soon as possible, because like the price, in my opinion, would steadily go up and up, and like some prices have started to go up already, so it's better to buy sooner than later. But of course, yeah, tell me if you do decide to buy any of these MLS players. Put it in the comments down below who you actually bought. And thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and have a great day. Thank you.